Welcome into the Nebrasketball Brunch Show, I-80 Club, but plus Husker Max, Kaleb, and oh, baby. This show just got a little bit more interesting this week. Hello, Nebraska
learned how to win on the road.
Yeah, Happy learned how to putt. Nebraska returns from the Northwest with some flannel shirts, a few Nirvana vinyls, and 2 victories against Oregon and Washington, and we are here to break it down, what it all means. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the Nebrasketball Brunch Show. I am Jack Mitchell. That's Kaleb Henry. Good morning, Kaleb. How are you? Happy brunch to you.
Good morning, and a happy brunch to you as well, sir. What a week. What a difference a week makes. And obviously last week, this same time, we were talking about, oh, yeah, the losing streak is over. And then the Pacific Northwest happened. Oh, man, I'm feeling good. This was a good week for Nebraska men's basketball.
So a couple of quick things to mention here. First of all, if you are just joining us for the first time, or you're hearing this for the first time after the fact, please subscribe, like, and subscribe to our YouTube pages, Husker Max and I-80 Club, right where you are on this would be great if you would do that. Both thing it allows
800 already. Both over 800 subscribers.
The race continues. Wow. The race continues, and what that allows you to do is let you know, obviously, when our shows are coming up. On Fridays, we're pretty predictable, but after Nebrasketball, which is our post-game show that we do, can happen at various times after games are over, kind of depending on a few different factors. So you know when we're going live, you get notifications on there after the game, which we will do again this Sunday. And then the other thing that it allows you to do is if we ever do another one of those watch parties again, that'll get you updated from that. We'll talk about that a little bit here in just a little bit, but we are not going to forget it today, Kaleb. It is time for the NCAA Tournament Confidence Meter. Here we go. Last week, we waited like 15 minutes into the show before we got to it. Will not happen today. It's very exciting to do today. So, Kaleb, let's remember where we were last week. I think to start, that might be helpful to give a little perspective. But where were you last week?
I think
it was some stupid number, so you can't remember.
No, it was like a 4.5. I was pretty. Yeah, it wasn't a dumb number. And then you were getting upset at me that I normally use dumb numbers, so I was like 4.58 repeating or something.
So it was okay. So it was in the 4.8 DPM tracks this for us very well, and so you were specifically the exact number was a 4.8 for you.
4.8. Okay,
if you were wondering. Okay. So where
somebody keeps track.
Yeah, I know. We really should put this on a spreadsheet or something. It would be a whole lot more easier to keep track of. But I am getting mine here as well. But where are you this week? And you had a huge jump last week. People will remember that you had actually dropped below me for the first time all year after the Maryland and USC losses. After the Maryland USC losses, and then you bumped up a bit after the Illinois win and got up ahead of me. I was at a 2, and then I've jumped up to a 3, I believe, last week. So with all that said, I'll let you start. Where are you after 4.8 and plus 2 wins?
I'm an 8.
Good Lord.
8.0. This team is going back to the dance.
Kaleb goes from under a 2 to an 8.0 in the matter of 2 weeks. That's amazing.
A part of it is 3 straight wins, 2 on the road, two ranked wins over the course of that time. Obviously, since last week, just the 1 ranked win and the 2 wins on the road. But also the combination of what you're seeing all of the other kind of bubble teams look like. Nebraska is looking really, really good when it comes to what that resume looks like in comparison. And of course, a 3-game winning streak, and then you're coming home for the next 2. Everything feels like it has definitely moved incredibly in the right direction for this ball club. I am an 8.0 right now on my confidence.
Whew. Okay. Wow. I don't know if I can get that. Well, I know I can't get there. But I was at a 3 last week, and I was just coming off the Illinois win. For a reminder, the last time that we did a show, the morning after, I believe, the Illinois win, and so there have been the 2 wins since then, and that's definitely, obviously, increased mine. I am going to put it at a. I am going to put it at a 5.5.
Okay. Over 50% for you.
5.5. Just I was between 5.5 and 6. I'm going to go 5.5.
You could have done 5.75 if you're between 5.
I thought about it. It probably is truly where I am, but I'm just out of principle of it. I am only doing that. So I will put them at a 5.5. I think it is a very slightly than not proposition. And let's delve into that a little bit on why I think that, because I think we're getting closer and closer, Kaleb, to being able to say, okay, this is very definitely what they've got to do to make it, right? And there's fewer games to sort of have to project on what it would take for them to get to 19 wins, to 20 wins, to 21 wins, those sorts of things. Yeah. So just an update as they stand now. If you didn't remember, they are 15-8 overall. They are 5-7 in the Big Ten Conference right now after winning 3 straight games. So that means they've got 8 games remaining. It's still a big chunk of season left. Every time we do this, I feel like there is always more season left than I feel like there's going to be when I look at the schedule. Do you feel that way? I always
every single time it's like, oh man, like when we were in the middle of that 6-game losing streak, it's like, is anything ever going to go right for this team? Oh, there's 11 regular season games left.
Yeah.
And it's like, it just feels like, I know that they're playing 2 a week, but there's so much opportunity every single week and then throughout the rest of the month.
Right. So there's a lot left. And just to run them down, we'll talk about this here a little bit. Next game, obviously, is happening Sunday against Ohio State on Super Bowl Sunday. And then they actually get back-to-back home games for the first time this conference season. In fact, for the first time since December 30th to January 4th between Southern and UCLA. That was the last time they had 2 home games in a row.
Wow.
That's crazy. I guess another quirk of the schedule. I guess to that, they did have 2 away games in a row when they had Iowa and Purdue shortly after that. That was January 7th and January 12th. And that's when this whole, bad part of the season got started, was with those 2 games.
Jack, this will be the first time that we do a show after back-to-back home games.
Is that right? Even at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, we did a show on January 3rd. So there was only the 1 home game before that. We have not done a show after a week of back-to-back home games.
We didn't do one. Let's see. Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right on that. That's interesting. Did we not do one after Fairleigh Dickinson on like November 15th? Did we do one then? Maybe. Well, yeah. If you go all the way back to like our first like 3 shows. Yeah. That's crazy. Let's go over a couple of metrics, Kaleb, real quick, just to kind of set the context before we have the NCAA discussion. And if you've got any you want to throw into, or in our Discord chat, where, by the way, we're reading the Discord chat today from our members. That's what we do for our live chat during every show. And it's a little something to give back to the people who support us, patreon.com/I80 Club. If you'd like to do that. Of course, we'll also take your super chats on YouTube. We will not
DPM has already updated the chart.
Dude, he's so fast. I love these charts too. He does. I really appreciate him doing those every time. Look at Kaleb shooting up. Pew! With the new charts.
Here, we can go ahead and
you want to share it? Do you want to save it and share it on the video? Why don't you do that? And then he's got the animated one too, which is really my favorite. The one that's a gift form. Those are the best.
You have to accept it or whatever on your end.
Oh, sorry. Hold on. I'm doing some other things. Yeah. Okay. So there we go. We need to do this every time. Okay. There we go. So we've got a visual for those of you who are.
This looks like the stock market's rebounded, baby. we're all the way back.
If you're listening on podcast, the I-80, we always retweet these out with the I-80 Club from DPM's Twitter account. So we'll do that. But you can see kind of how the confidence has gone completely flat for the whole first chunk of the year for multiple months, basically. Then you had the Creighton win, and that obviously bumped me up significantly. You were already so high,
yeah,
make a big difference. Then you took a dive after Michigan State. You were pissed after that game.
I was not happy.
I took a little bit of a dive, and then we kind of slowly climbed back up the mountain through the rest of the non-con into the beginning of the conference season, including the Indiana win, and then peaking at the UCLA win, and then free fall after the UCLA win. We were just talking about that with those 2 road games, the Iowa Purdue and the 3 weeks of hell, as I've called them. And now going up at basically almost the same clip they went down on for both of us right now.
Almost,
it's kind of making like a parabola. I think that's the right word, a parabola type situation on the graph. So you can see that there. That's where we have been. It has been a volatile year for Nebraska basketball, to say the least. So with that said, let me go through a couple of the metrics that are out there right now. KenPom, Nebraska at 41 right now.
Okay. Good. Well, because remember, I talked about where the last 4 or the first 4 out, what their average their average net. So
I've got the net too right here. The net. So 41 in KenPom, and in the net, Nebraska is at 49.
Okay. 49. Because I think a week ago they were 50 or above 50.
Yeah.
So still some work to do.
They haven't jumped a ton, frankly, in the net.
You want to get really 40 or better. 40 or better is where you want to be to feel safe as a Power 4 school
on Selection Sunday.
That's
interesting.
Based off of the last 4 years worth of data, there are some Power 4 schools that the highest ones that were left out as at-large bids were 40. Now there was a mid-major who I think was as high as 28, but for a Power 4 school, if you are above or better than 40, you're in. That's what the data shows over the last 4 years.
Interesting. So they got a little bit of climbing to do. They got to make up some ground still. It doesn't mean they can't make it at 50, but to be in that safe spot, at least with respect to that, metric. Just for a little context in the net where some other teams are, UCLA. Well, Ohio State is 25. Jiminy Christmas. UCLA is 26. We're talking about Big Ten teams. Creighton is 34. Oregon is now down to 35. They're on a rough stretch right now. And you don't get to another Big Ten team till you get to Nebraska at 49, assuming I'm not missing anyone. And then the next one would be Northwestern at 55 till you get to Penn State at 60, who's had a precipitous drop as Penn State. And then you have to go even further down to find Washington, obviously, and USC and Minnesota as well. So that is that's the update on the net. Southern Cal is 68.
Okay.
So 68 is where they are. Now, I said KenPom. In Bart Torvik right now, Nebraska is at 41. So kind of in that better spot there. Bart is projecting now, Kaleb, this is interesting. After the Washington win, Bart is projecting 19-12 for the first time since we've been looking at this during, before the weeks of hell or after the weeks of hell. So he has got Nebraska at 19-12, which I still think we kind of feel like is maybe on the right side of the bubble, but I really don't know. Like, it's just that would definitely have you nervous and like, man, you need to do something in Indianapolis to make you feel safe. But it's possible to make it with that, I guess, is what I would think.
One of the bracketology accounts on Twitter said that they would make Nebraska a lock at 19.
Yeah, I saw that. That was at T3 bracketology, I think, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know if I believe that. I won't let myself believe it is the bottom line. So it doesn't matter if I believe it or not. Jack. I will not.
Beautiful heart.
I will not allow myself to believe that, no matter how true it is and how much better he knows it than me. I want 20 at the minimum. I do
Yeah,
not want.
look,
I don't want the
that's what we
stress
talked
of
about.
19.
The 2 looks better on the front of that, just automatically
Yep.
when you get to that 20.
Right.
Go
And then
ahead.
if you lose in Indy, I think you're in a better spot. You don't have to win in Indy to get there. I'm not saying I would feel 1,000% confident at 20, but I would be confident they're on the right side of the bubble, I think, in
Right.
that situation. And then some of the other ones. So staying on Bart real quick, Bart does this thing that he calls tournament ranketology. And what that is a projection that through his metrics, not necessarily of where they are right now, but it is how he factors in future projections to this
Yeah.
with his metrics and where Nebraska would end up. He has got Nebraska as the last bye right now.
Okay.
And this is again, so this is probably based on that 19 win. I assume that's what that means is he's factoring in that 19 win projection, which his models have. And Nebraska would be the first 11 seed, which would be the last bye. Utah, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, San Diego State would be the last 4, the 4 that would be headed to Dayton. And so that kind of gives you an idea of where they would be positioned there. The line above them, for what it's worth, in that one, BYU, Georgia, New Mexico, Clemson.
And that is really close to what Joe Lunardi has on ESPN as of 2 hours ago.
And which his is more of a current snapshot, so that's interesting. But yeah.
And in Lunardi's is Nebraska is that last bye, along with Oklahoma, Utah State, and Georgia. On the 11 line, Nebraska would be taking on Missouri in Milwaukee, and the same pod as Iowa State and Northern Colorado.
Ooh.
Other interesting, and I know there's a lot of basketball, but it's always interesting to me where some of these things line up. But Lunardi also has Omaha getting in as a 16 and playing in Dayton. SIU Edwardsville in as a 16.
Oh, look at you shouting out your alma mater.
Creighton, but here's where it gets real interesting. Creighton Joe has them in as an 8 seed. They would be heading to Lexington, Kentucky, along with hopefully an SIU Edwardsville win.
Let's go.
If the Cougars, man, let's play this out. If you could get my Cougars to beat American and then beat 1 seed Auburn, they could potentially meet Creighton in the second round.
Yeah, that sounds really likely.
Let's let it go.
I think that's probably going to happen, I would say.
Put the money on it now. Open up the Flip app. Make it happen.
Yeah, that's interesting. So that's that was Bart, that last one that I had. And again, you can check that out. You go to barttorvik.com and you can look at his tourney cast. That's always, I think, and he also does a bid percentage in that. This I should also mention. His bid is 79.7%, Kaleb. So he is up there with you in terms of.
And I was at an 8.
Yeah, he's at 79.7. So you are right on par with where he is. You want another percentage one. Teamrankings.com also does a percentage. They've got Nebraska projected at 19-12, same thing as Bart, and they put him at a 69% chance.
Nice.
Yeah. And then finally, just wrapping up sort of the projective things, the final one I've got here is Bracket Matrix, and same disclaimer I always give about Bracket Matrix. Some of the games have the last game in it, some of them don't. You've got ones that have been updated from February 4th, it looks like, mainly February 3rd, even 2nd. Wow, I see one that's January 31st. What good is that to have that in there? All the way out to last night. And in that one, with that all that said, Nebraska would just get better from there because they have outdated ones and they've only won. They are right now the third 11 seed, so they would be a play-in game on there. But they're in, weirdly enough, of the 93 brackets, they're in 69 of them.
Nice.
So there you go. And I see 11 seeds and 10 seeds primarily on their line. I don't think I see anything other than that as I scroll over real briefly. So that's just kind of an overview here, Kaleb, on where everything's set. So I think the way to summarize it is, yeah, I mean, the consensus is somewhere between 70 and 80%, 65 and 80% chance that the people who are doing projections there's a lot of agreement that kind of 19 wins is the line right now where they think they'll end up, which is interesting because that's where we put that line we just said of sort of there's a chance, but you don't feel comfortable if you get to 19. It feels like to get one over that would still be a goal. So let's dig into the schedule then.
Yeah, because there's
coming up.
There's 8 games left, and you need 4 to get to 19.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, 4 to get to 19, 5, of course, to get to 500 in the conference, and 5 to get to 20. Mm-hmm. Can you find 5 wins here? Let's go over them.
Yes.
Ohio State at home. Now, Ohio State just had a win against Maryland. We'll get more to them in detail, but the metrics love Ohio State, as we were just saying, right? Mm-hmm. The metrics love Ohio State, although you look at their actual record, where Nebraska is 15-8, Ohio State's 14-9,
yeah,
and 6-6 in the Big Ten. They have if you're just looking at wins and losses, they're almost mirror images of each other. Ohio State, in terms of victories that they have gotten that have boosted up their resume so significantly, includes their best wins are they beat Texas on a neutral floor to start out the season. They've got non-conference losses to Auburn and Pittsburgh. Those are their only non-conference losses. Other non-con wins, Indiana, that's a 4 win. Indiana State's not good anymore, though. I don't know, actually, to be honest. I mean, they lost to Indiana in conference. They lost to Illinois in conference, lost to Oregon, lost to Michigan State, lost to Maryland. Their wins in conference are Rutgers at home, Minnesota away, Purdue away. There you go.
That's a good win. Yeah.
Yeah. I forgot about that one. Purdue. They won at Purdue. I don't even remember that. They won at Purdue 73-70. At Purdue, apparently. They won Iowa at home, got a road win at Penn State, and then that last game, Maryland. Oh, what is going on with those metrics? Is it that Purdue win? I guess it's that Purdue win.
It's just everything is that Purdue win.
Yeah, that's crazy. Anyway, back to the Nebraska schedule to finish it out. So it just kind of an overview. Ohio State at home, Maryland at home, Northwestern away, Penn State away, Michigan at home, Minnesota at home. So 2-2-2, and then at Ohio State for a second time, and then back home to finish off on Senior Day on a Sunday afternoon against Iowa. Do we see 4, 5, or more wins?
Yes,
in that group. And
so
that's the ultimate question.
So here you go, because and I'm going to combine a couple of your tiers because you had it's absolutely impossible. We're going to just combine those with your find 3 because Nebraska found 1 with the at Oregon,
Yep.
So and at home with Illinois. Mm-hmm. So in your tiers, which by the way, here's what they were when Nebraska was still in that 6-game losing streak. It was find 3 with at Wisconsin, Illinois, at Oregon, at Northwestern, at Penn State, Michigan, at Ohio State. Well, they've already found 2 with Illinois and at Oregon.
Okay.
So is there
one more of those?
So is it at Northwestern, at Penn State, home with Michigan, at Ohio State? And then in the must-haves, you already got one of those with at Washington. And then the rest of those must-haves are Ohio State, Maryland, that's over the next week, Minnesota, and Iowa, all of those at home.
That's
the path. And you laid that out at the end of the 3 weeks of hell.
I did, and I got and some
still the path.
I got some blowback for it, but that's what it is. I mean, another way of looking at it, if you want to, Kaleb, you just went out at home, and that gets you to 20. And I don't know that you've got the concerns that you had last year about. I met Bigelow texted me. Apparently, Ohio State beat Kentucky. I missed that on the schedule. Thank you. That's their best win. At Purdue's pretty good too. They're probably close. Either way, regardless. Back to the current discussion, Kaleb, if they won out at home, they got 5. So that would be Ohio State, Maryland, Michigan, Minnesota, and Iowa. And they get to 20. I don't think you have the concerns about road wins that you did last year because you've got at Oregon, you've got at Creighton, you got both of those. Mm-hmm. And then you would also have the Washington win that they just got. So let's just say, like, bare minimum, they got to 20, just won the home games. I think still pretty good about the resume if they did that. And
Yeah.
none of those road games would be, I don't think any of them would be particularly bad losses. Again, at Northwestern, at Penn State, at Ohio State. Like, it feels like you want one of those three. And so I guess the simple way to do it again, Kaleb, is another way to look at it. If you lose a home game, you replace it with one of those road games going forward. So if you can't get Michigan, which will be a tough game, you got to get Penn State or you got to get Northwestern right before it.
Exactly.
But boy, if they could pull off these two home games, if Pinnacle Bank Arena, and it's going to be interesting to see what it's like on Sunday, Kaleb, with Ohio State. And God, I hate it to be another Sunday afternoon game.
1 o'clock tip.
Super Bowl Sunday. I'm hoping the kind of the winning and a little bit of the buzz of the Illinois game is going to make that a good home field advantage again. Man, we've seen some bad home field advantages though. So listen, I shouldn't take anything for granted. But if they got Pinnacle Bank and then Thursday night against Maryland, I think with that Ohio State Thursday night against Maryland's going to get, I think that might be getting closer to vintage Pinnacle Bank Arena.
Yes. Yeah, very much so. Like at this point, you're going, it's 3 wins in a row. There were a couple of ranked wins in there, a couple on the road, and they're coming back home. You feel like there should be some juice on Sunday, but it's really pointing towards Thursday on if Sunday can happen. Like you make Sunday happen against Ohio State. Next Thursday is juiced up PBA, vintage PBA.
Yeah.
This team is on a run. They're into February. It's that time of year over the last couple of seasons where Fred Hoiberg and the boys really turn things around. And it's wild. I think I had seen, now they wore out in the Pacific Northwest their Black History Month jerseys. And we saw what Nebraska did in the home jerseys the last couple of years. I think the stat was Nebraska is 8-2 over the last couple of seasons in Black History Month jerseys.
Nebraska loves Black History Month.
Are we wearing red at home? Is that what
That's
we're
a
doing?
great question. Or will they bust? Can they bust out the ones from last year?
May as
and
well.
The year before, they wore them multiple years. They wore them 2 or 3 years.
They're not outdated. Like, you can't just be like, no, can't wear these anymore.
And don't get me wrong, I do hate those road uniforms. I definitely hate them, but I'll be looking.
If you win in them, I don't care.
I have good memories associated with them now. I mean, I'm not even necessarily being superstitious. They just give me a happy, warm feeling when I see them, like those white ones with the fluorescent colors on them in the last year February ones.
Well, what's the reason for you, and I'll say older Husker fans because older than me, I'll just say older, but don't like the surrender whites for Husker football.
Right, because you have bad associations.
With it.
I think of Iowa State. I think of Georgia Tech. I think of Colorado. I think of bad games with those on. So it may not even be superstition. It's just the feeling that I get with it. Maryland is 18th right now, Kaleb. They just lost to Ohio State. They have Rutgers coming up on Sunday. I wonder if they hold on to a ranked And we
position. All watched Rutgers the other night.
Oh, geez. Yes, we did. I wonder if Maryland can stay ranked when they come into Pinnacle Bank Arena on Thursday, because that could, of course, add in that now the record-breaking ranked win for the year for Nebraska if they could get a ranked Maryland.
And I know when you get to Selection Sunday, they're looking at the metrics. Right? They're not looking at whatever the Associated Press was. Sure. But there's something in that feeling of a number being next to a team's name when you play them, and especially if you beat them. And Nebraska is at 4, which ties a school record and has not happened in the 21st century to get 4 ranked wins in the same season.
Yes.
And 2 in the last week. So or in just over a week. So it is one of those things that this team has gotten over a little bit of a hurdle last year you beat a couple of top 5 teams at home, but you went and did it to Oregon on the road right after ending a 6-game losing streak. You didn't immediately go on the road and then regress with everything you were doing. And then a 9:30 Central tip a couple days later, and you didn't immediately regress in the result. Yeah, that first half was something else with the shooting from the Huskies, but you've put everything in place to go. It's not how the first 20 minutes go. It's how what does the number look like when the clock hits those final zeros? And Nebraska has figured that out. It would be nice to go through and add that extra ranked win, break a school record in the process of, okay, now you're loading up and you're building for what you can do in March.
Yes. Yep, for sure.
Everything just feels like it's another thing to add into the momentum.
They I agree. And it is interesting because Michigan currently is ranked 24th. I thought they were higher than that. They're 24th. So if Michigan there's a scenario where if Maryland would drop out after this weekend, that none of these final games could be against ranked teams, which is kind of odd. Because right now you look at it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 of them, 4 of the 8 are, if I'm counting this right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are quad 1 games. The next 5 are quad 1 games, whether at home or the road. And then Minnesota's a quad 3 game. Oh, there's Ohio State. That's a 1A. So six of the 8 are quad 1 games.
Okay.
Minnesota's a 3, Iowa's a 2. So 6 of the 8 remaining ones are quad 1 games. And if you look at the net right now, Nebraska in quad 1 games is now, I believe, 4-6. Yeah, 4-6 right now in quad 1 games. So
okay,
getting another one Sunday would be great to add on. Great to add on to that resume. And a weird dynamic with playing Ohio State twice like that at the end of the year, so close together as well.
Yeah, that's one of the things about having a 20-game conference slate and 18 teams in your league, to where you do have to play, 3 of them that are home and homes, and obviously Iowa's another one, and then who's the last one for your home and home?
The last one, the Nebraska's other home and home that they got both of them. Now I'm having a brain. Maryland, right?
Maybe
Maryland. Yeah. Nebraska already played at Maryland. They have them coming up. Still at home.
Oh yeah. There you go. Yeah. So it's the imbalance of the Big Ten schedule. I'd love for. I mean, maybe you do go to a 17 game. That's its own conversation,
right?
But even then, it's like, okay, which ones do you have at home versus on the road? There's imbalance with that as well. But it is really tricky when you're going through and you're not taking everyone to the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah.
And I know at that point you're talking about who are the guys at the very end of the bench for what you have for a league. But when there is some imbalance, the team that finishes 12th and the team that finishes 16th are probably not that far apart if you were to balance their schedules.
Right. Yes.
And the team that finishes 12th in the league, guess what? They get to the Big Ten tournament and they put together 3 wins. They may have played their way into the tournament. And there's not a lot of difference between where those teams are in what their schedules actually look like.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. It's just a weird scheduling model to just have those 3 teams that you're playing home and home and everyone else once. And I agree. It can really benefit or can really hurt teams with the matter of just a couple of games. Let's play this game real quick, Kaleb. I'm going to go through. I've got the website that will project out the seeds of the Big Ten tournament. So let's do the Nebraska results.
A year ago on the morning show, we just played with that.
Yes. All right. So I'm going to give you a Nebraska game. You give me. I'll go through Nebraska, and I will change those. The other one will be set at default, which is the highest Bart Torvik ranking that they give them to. So it's kind of like picking the favorite in every game, which obviously won't happen, but just for fun to kind of see generally where they would be. Okay, so Sunday, Ohio State at Nebraska. Who are you taking in that?
Give me Nebraska.
For the purposes of this, at least. All right, you're going to take Nebraska on.
I'm just giving you kind of my gut feelings on where things are.
Maryland at Nebraska.
Nebraska.
All right, here we go. Good start here. Northwestern at Nebraska.
Nebraska.
Or Nebraska at Northwestern, sorry.
Yeah.
Nebraska. Okay, I had to change the first 2, but I did not have to change that one, oddly. Nebraska at Penn State.
Penn State.
Okay. Now that one I have to change. Interesting. From the default. The next game then after that would be Michigan at home.
Michigan.
Okay. I'll leave that there. Minnesota at home.
Nebraska.
At Ohio State.
Ohio State.
Okay. I'm not having to change any of those. And then I think I didn't miss any. Then the Iowa game. Iowa.
Nebraska.
Home. All right, let's calculate them. What do you think? What do you think their seed is?
11.
So you got them up to 10-10, which is the spot where we want them to be. That's the target. They would be the 10th seed in that scenario. And that means if that were the case, that they would be the last team playing on day one. So 10 and 9 is kind of, that's a big, you want to be in 9 and not 10 ideally. And they would have an immediate rematch with Iowa 3 days after playing them.
Wow.
According to these projections. The winner then would face Michigan. The winner of that then would face Maryland. So, again, that won't be how it goes, but it gives you an idea of kind of what you're going, because you would then face the 7 seed, and they've got Maryland as the 2 seed in this projection, which I don't know if I totally buy, but nonetheless.
What did the default have?
All right, I'll go back to the default, because
you said you had to change a couple of them.
Yeah, I may have been. Well, I know Torvik has us at 19, but I don't know if that necessarily matches. Let's see. All right, I just reloaded it. All right, so they've got Nebraska at 9 and 11 at the 11 seed, and in that scenario, Nebraska would play the last game still on Wednesday. They would have Indiana, and if they won that game, they would have Illinois, and if they won that game, they would have UCLA. 3-0 against those teams this year.
I don't know. Sign me up for that path.
3-0 with then probably playing Michigan or Maryland in what would be then the semifinals. Like, here's one of the things, Kaleb, about this. Now that you've got so many teams in this conference, it does water down the Big Ten tournament a little bit. And like, Illinois a 6 seed, UCLA a 3 seed. Right, teams that Nebraska would still be underdogs against those games, but they beat each this year.
Yeah,
right. They've gone on the road and beat Oregon this year. If they would hit Oregon in one of those games as well, they're the only teams that it feels like you would get. I don't feel like I know enough what Michigan is yet, but the only teams that you're going to match up against within the Big Ten and be like, oh no,
I don't want to see Michigan State.
Purdue and Michigan State, right?
Yeah.
That's Wisconsin. Do you feel that way about Wisconsin?
I don't feel like they can shoot as well as they did when they played, but like, Wisconsin would probably be right on that line to the next tier. But really, it's how long can you avoid Michigan State and Purdue?
Yes, get on and
you've got a chance
on this bracket. And I guess I could post it up here. Nebraska is on, and this again is the one where we just took the defaults. Nebraska is on the other side of both of those teams in that one. So that would also be nice here. This is not going to be Josh would make fun of me if he knew I did it this way, because that's just
oh my god, look at all that blank space.
I know that's how the website does it. Don't talk to me.
Okay.
So, but you can still see it if you make your screen big there and take a look at that. So Purdue, Michigan State would be on the other side. Again, this is just for fun, to kind of get a sense of what this tournament is going to look like. Wouldn't that be hilarious? Indiana in the first round. What if Nebraska knocked them off again, blew them out again, and ended Mike Woodson's career finally? That'd be amazing.
Man, I am so excited for us to get to the Big Ten tournament. But if Nebraska's an 11 seed and you see that path and you go, wow, this feels Ohio State college football playoff path, where there's nobody in front of them that really Nebraska feels threatened by. Indiana, Illinois, UCLA, let's say it's chalk, then Maryland at a neutral site. You're like, okay, so in that instance, Nebraska had 19 wins going into the tournament. You're looking at getting to 22 or 23 wins before Selection Sunday.
Now, this projection has Michigan State really low. It's got them at 5 as I scroll up here and show you their standings, but you can see why here is there's a 3-way tie.
It's a log jam right there.
It's a log jam, and it's got UCLA finishing up really well, believe that or not. And it's got Maryland at 15-5, just coming off a loss too. So we'll see about that. But yeah, you'll want to avoid that 8-9 game to some degree if you can. But I don't know if you'd rather play Wednesday than that either. That's going to depend on what Nebraska needs at that point. Do they need to get to the championship? Do they just need one win? You kind of are you're going to be cheering for a seed and a placement based on what Nebraska needs at that moment. But just looking at that bracket, man, that is going to be fun, Kaleb. Holy cow. Wednesday, you'll get 3 games, 2:30, 5 p.m., 7:30. And then Thursday, you start at 11 a.m. You got 4 games. Friday, you start at 11 a.m. You got 4 games. And then Saturday, of course, are the semifinals Sunday. And that part is basically like the old tournament, but you got a few more at the beginning there.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be a blast.
In the Discord, Royals Girl asked a question. I was about to type out an answer, but I think this would be just as interesting to ask you what you think. Says, how many Big Ten teams do we think are getting in the dance?
Interesting. Good question.
This is a conversation I've had a few times. Even in the preseason, I remember talking with Bigelow quite a bit and asking him particularly, where is that line in an 18-team league where you brought in some decent programs at who is getting into the NCAA tournament? I said if you're in the top half, so 9, you're pretty much guaranteed that you're going to the tournament. I will say for me, the Big Ten is guaranteed 8 spots. 9 is very likely. 10 depends on where your bubble is.
Well, the interesting thing, Kaleb, if you look at the bubble where it is right now, kind of based on like the bracket matrix thing or on the rankings that you were talking about, there's not you got Nebraska on the bubble, and maybe you've got like USC on the other side of the bubble. But other than that, right now, at least, and things could change, but right now there really aren't any bubble teams other than Nebraska in the Big Ten.
Yeah,
isn't that crazy?
With Nebraska making it in, Lunardi has 10 Big Ten teams.
Yeah, like, and then I don't know, is there anybody else even on that's close or in around that area with his? Any other Big Ten teams?
No, because there's no other Big Ten teams on. Because Nebraska with him is the last bye, and there's no Big Ten on the last 4 in, first 4 out, or next 4 out. Oh, USC. Yeah. USC is at the end of the next 4 out.
That was what I was thinking. Maybe the only other team, but I think they have a ways. They would have to go on a little bit of a run here to actually be in there. But
what that's saying is,
I guess Indiana could, I guess, go on a run too and get in, maybe.
But they might bounce USC in the process. So what you're looking at is 9 are in, 10 to 11 are bubble dependent.
Yes. Yeah. 9. Yes. Yeah, I agree. And probably 10. Right? There could be. So what teams could play themselves onto the bubble in the wrong direction? That's interesting too. You're looking at that area. I guess Ohio State, but their metrics are so good right now that it's hard to kind of imagine that would be them. Oregon could maybe, Oregon's probably the next one, I would think.
Lunardi has Ohio State as a 9, Oregon as a 7.
Yeah, I don't know, man. And when did that come out? Because
this morning, about 2 hours ago.
Okay. Those are the only 2 that I can even really see realistically playing themselves onto the bubble. UCLA feels pretty safe now, I think.
UCLA
and
is
then
up
above that
5.
Yeah, above that, nobody. Wisconsin's not playing themselves off. Maryland's not. Illinois is not.
Wisconsin a 4, Maryland a 6.
Yeah, UCLA would be the last one that I would think, and they would have to have. They only have 6 losses still.
Yeah.
They're 17-6 right now. They should be at 20 wins shortly. So after all of this thinking, oh man, you could have this conference where you've got all of these bubble teams. It's just broken down that it might just be Nebraska. Like the entire bubble focus of the conference could very easily be on Nebraska.
And that focus would be on getting a 10th team into the tournament.
Oh man. And then we're going to have the whole SEC Big Ten thing,
Jack, do you remember a time when it was like, man, Nebraska, what was it, finished 4th in the Big Ten?
Yeah.
And missed?
Yep. It could be an 11 seed in the Big Ten and still make it.
Yes.
Right? Without winning the conference tournament.
Yeah, and that is one of the side effects of conference expansion. and having so many teams and especially when you have the league standings at the end get so jumbled up to the point where like Michigan State, who is going to be one of the favorites to win the Big Ten tournament, could be a 5 seed.
Yeah.
Just the way all of the records shake out and all of the tiebreakers. So that's one of the side effects on it. I wish the Big Ten would find a way to put all 18 in there, because that's one of the things I like about basketball as a sport. Even in high school, like talking here in Nebraska, it doesn't matter if you went winless on the season, you're into your sub-district or your district, and theoretically you still play it out until you're out. So the college basketball level, I know some of the mid-majors, they do the really long bracket where if you're a top 2 seed, other teams have to win like 4 games to get to you.
Yeah.
And you just get to hang out in the semifinals.
Yep.
The Big Ten's not going to do that.
No.
But I would like them to figure
those tournaments that are like 8 rounds long where it just keeps going like this.
I love those.
Yeah.
I love those
Big,
so much.
Gonzaga and St. Mary's and those guys always do that at the West Coast Conference. It was so weird.
St. Mary's playing really well, by the way. I know
they're second. They're 27th right now in the AP rankings.
Yeah, I know we had talked about after that loss, like, man, is this a loss that can be one where you look back and you go, it's not that bad? It's not that bad.
Yeah. Actually, you know what we're getting close to, Kaleb, is who you're rooting for to steal a phrase for John Bishop.
Those out.
I don't know that it's if you're not doing it yet, it's not far away to start looking at those. Yeah. Ooh, that's exciting. That's always a fun time of year too. When you have the opportunity to do it.
So I Googled
when you don't.
I Googled who you're rooting for.
Yeah.
And one of the first hits to pull up is John Bishop's Twitter account.
I'm sure that's trademark John Bishop, so I will give him credit for that one. But he and I usually like to both put those out, so I'll start doing that probably maybe next week, maybe the end of next week. We'll see if it feels too early then or not. But yeah, those will start because you mentioned St. Mary's for sure. That's one that helps Nebraska, but Oregon State is another one. If they go on a little bit of a run. And obviously the Creighton road win continuing
to look better.
I'm not going to tell anyone how to cheer, but man, you need Oregon to get off that schneid. You need that Creighton road win to look completely elite. Those are all huge things that could help along the way as well. So,
okay. So we did our watch party on Wednesday. We didn't really do an after Nebraska ball. Just what were
that's true.
Now that you've had as we're into like the last 10 minutes of the show.
Yeah, I know.
And as you think back to that Washington game and the Pacific Northwest trip as a whole, what were your biggest takeaways for this team going on the road and coming back 2-0?
I think specifically about the Washington game was the ability to get out of. Boy, they've shown just some mental toughness multiple times in the last. It was different in all 3 of their last 3 wins. The Illinois one, it was, oh my gosh, they got to the point where they pulled all the way back. They missed the shot, but oh no, here comes overtime. The momentum is very clearly going one way rather than the other. And you felt like you could feel that, and just the opposite happened, right? Mm-hmm. They bowed up in overtime, momentum be damned, and they did that. The Oregon game, Oregon was about to make that a game about, make it a very tight game about 8 different times in the second half of that game. And every freaking time, Kaleb, Nebraska answered.
Punch for punch.
Every time Oregon had a play that looked like, all right, there's the one. They're going to get a stop now. They're going to get a score coming the other way. They'll be within 1 possession, and that place is going to start to get lit like it's feeling a comeback. I'm telling you what, the frequency with which they answered against Oregon was unbelievable. And then the Washington one, again, you could have easily gone, here we go again in that first half, and just said, oh, here we go again. We've seen what happens on the road when you start out incredibly cold. The other team cannot miss, and they've, whether you use the Q word or not, Kaleb, they've not played well when they get down and a team is really lighting it up on the road.
Yeah.
Granted, Purdue, Michigan State, Wisconsin, obviously better teams than Washington, but Washington did the same thing they did, essentially, offensively. And instead of shriveling and folding, Nebraska this time decided, you know what, we are absolutely the best team here. They were on a hot streak. We got to tamp that down a little bit, but once that happens, we are confident. And they again look like exactly what I thought against UCLA. I remember saying it to you after that game on After Nebrasketball, Kaleb. I said, I think this is who Nebraska is. They are a well-coached team that has got a veteran presence that does not get too high or too low, and it allows them to win games the way that they did against UCLA. Yep. That's what I saw again for the first time since that UCLA game over the course of these last 3 games.
Yeah. It was.
What do you think?
Well, you had those first 2 games. You had over the 3-game winning streak. You had Illinois and you had Oregon, and Nebraska trailed for a grand total of 46 seconds between those 2 games. Mm-hmm. And that was early on in the Oregon game. So Nebraska played, even with it getting to overtime against Illinois, Nebraska played out in front of those games. And then, like you said, against Illinois, had to survive at the end, but then took over in overtime. And against Oregon, just kept holding them at arm's length. Against Washington, that was the win that impressed me the most out of the three games on this streak, because of the red hot shooting from deep. 7 for 7 from 3 in the first 8 minutes for a team that averaged 6.6 made threes a game. That is
as we learned during the first half in real time during our watch along.
Yeah, we're like, oh God, this is dumb. But then Washington goes 1 for 7 the rest of the half, 1 for 15 in the second half. And if I'm off on those numbers, it's not by very much, because it's been a couple days since I looked at the box score. But Washington doesn't end up lighting it up from 3 the rest of the game. And Nebraska outscores Washington 49-15 in the second, or 49-25 in the second half. And just dominated. And you got to the end of the game, and the only turnover Nebraska had in the final 20 minutes was letting the shot clock run out.
Yeah.
Didn't have an actual turnover in the second half. Took over, and just everything that you have to have from a mental toughness point to do that to a team in their building. I know there were only 300 people there in Seattle that showed up to the game, including Rich King. But still, that was all you had, and you were still on the road, and it was a 9:30 Central tip. There were just a lot of things that could have gone wrong for this team, and they did early and dug a hole. Trailed, I think, by as much as 13 or 15, but they just stayed in it. They never let themselves get out of it. Jawan Gary and Bryce Williams continuing to attack the rim, and Connor Esigian hits 4 threes, and Berke plays really good on the West Coast, apparently. Keep him acclimated to whatever is happening near the Pacific Ocean. Just things seem to go well, even when things were going wrong in Seattle for this team. So it's really encouraging that now you're coming home with that momentum, instead of being, think about the last time, even going into the Illinois game, you were on a 6-game losing streak. PBA didn't feel like it was super juiced, even with Nebraska not trailing. Yep. Now you're on a 3-game winning streak coming home for a weekend game. I know it's early afternoon, but there's a chance to get some juice back in the building.
In terms of individual players, who did you think, or multiple people, who did you kind of think has been the biggest kind of catalyst to the turnaround in the last 3 games, and have made changes to the way that they're playing that have been super important?
It feels like the easy answer, but it's Bryce Williams being alpha Bryce Williams, and what he's doing. And there's a reason that he was the Big Ten Player of the Week, the AP National Player of the Week, the USBWA Oscar Robertson National Player of the Week team for the second time this year. There's a reason he's getting all of these accolades and honors for what he's doing at different times in this season. It's because when he is on, he is one of the best players in the conference. He's one of the best players in the country, especially offensively with what he can do. So really the difference is, and I know it happened I can't remember exactly which game it was, but it took 8 or 16 minutes for Bryce Williams to take a shot in one of those losses. And you're just like, what is going on with him? Is it physical? Is it mental? Whatever it is. But over this 3-game stretch, he is taken off offensively. He's getting to the rim. He's getting to the free throw line, and he's bringing those guys with him. And Jawan Gary is taking less threes, and he's getting into the paint. He's getting to the rim. You saw Asijan knock down a couple of threes, and Berke didn't look great in a couple other games, but looked really good on Wednesday. And Braxton Mia, coach's decision, did not play for a couple of games, comes back out and does his role. And I think that's the biggest thing is you've seen your alpha have to be like go out and be the alpha, and then your guys in their specific roles go just do those roles.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I agree with everything you said. I would just echo, obviously, Bryce and Juwan sticking to their roles were their best. Exactly what you said. We've said that it's what we've been preaching on this show forever. When they do that, it's the most important thing for this team, even if other things are going wrong. But in addition to that, I would, seeing Connor get really hot for a game, it felt like we hadn't seen that since before Christmas.
Yeah.
And you finally saw him have kind of the not to continue the comparisons, but kind of had like the Casey game a little bit where he's just on fire. And if he gets one of those going at home in these games, that'll be huge if he can do that. Raleigh's continued to sort of be another guy to find points when you got to have point. When I was talking about those answers against Oregon, he felt like he was part of a fair number of those.
Yeah, very much.
And then just in that Washington game, I thought that was Berke's best game of the year. I don't know numbers wise if it looked like that, but just in terms of
three that you didn't even get to see because we hadn't the broadcast hadn't switched over yet.
Yes. Yeah, you've got that. And I just thought he looked more active all over the court for the most part. And defensively, he gets some blocks. He got a bunch of rebounds. He looked like he was moving at a little bit of a different speed than we've seen him.
I agree.
This year. And I'm still wondering who he is in the end. I still don't know, but I think I got a little closer to understanding it with that. Morgan, I think, has kind of continued to do the same thing that he does. Sam's continued to do the same thing that he does as well. Ulis, I don't think even played against Washington. Did you notice that? I don't think Ulis got in.
I don't know
against Washington. I don't recall. That I might be wrong on that. That's worth checking, but it's that. And then the only other thing, defense is way better. I don't know exactly what you attribute that to. How much of it is scheme? How much of it is something else? How much of it is, the offense having more success? And then number two on the offense, it feels, Kaleb, like there are guys moving toward the hoop in ways that it just wasn't happening when they would get completely into those droughts. There are guys moving toward the basket and they're finding them. That was not happening during 3 weeks of hell.
Defensive energy, offensive movement. Aaron Ulis, by the way, played 30 seconds on Wednesday.
Okay, got in at the end. Okay.
Which I don't blame us missing because there were sips for soups and it was a fun game to come back and win.
Yes.
A lot. If people like hanging out, watching I-80 Club and Husker Max on the YouTube pages, there's a lot coming up, including you guys for patrons tomorrow morning, right?
Yep. Tomorrow morning, we will be doing our regular Saturday morning coffee show. That's only for patrons, but it's kind of Josh and my signature show that we do every Saturday all year round. And so we'll be talking some basketball. There's a lot of football news right now too. We'll delve into as well. So that'll be fun. And then, of course, we also have our Wednesday show, which you can see live. If you're a patron, we'll be doing that. I think that's still Wednesday next week. I need to check. It's now called I-80 Live because it can be Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, depending on the week. So, yeah, Kaleb, we've got those things. And don't forget, we're doing a public live Valentine's night show for those of us who do not have anything better to do on Valentine's night. And we're even both married, Josh and I are. Nice. So that'll be fun. Maybe even followed by a DJ set for patrons.
Oh.
Ooh. If you haven't seen one of those, that is worth your $5 just once at patreon.com/I80 Club. And I'm not even kidding. So,
and of course, we'll have on Sunday, we'll have after Nebrasketball, after the Nebraska-Ohio State game, probably about 3:30-ish. We will go on because it's a 1:00 tip. And on the Husker Max YouTube page on Monday, 9:00, we'll get back into another Husker Max today with myself and Nick Handley.
Yep. And that after Nebrasketball, free for everybody, and your Husker Max show as well. You can check that out for free. Just make sure to like the YouTube page. Give us a subscription on the YouTube page as well. And we would love to have you continue to be a part of all we're doing. Thanks so much for everything, guys. That is it for, not after Nebrasketball.
Uh-oh.
It is the Nebrasketball Brunch Show. There's a lot of products out here. I'm starting to get them mixed up. Plus, the other thing I need to mention real quick, too, Volleyball State with Jeff Sheldon, Lincoln Arneal, now part of the I-80 Club, and they've got a lot more content coming up Be following us on social media because we'll be making announcements about a new Patreon tier if you want to get the volleyball state content and deep volleyball state content.
And they had an awesome conversation with Coach Cook earlier this week. I encourage people to go listen to that one.
That's still up. That's on the YouTube page, as is all of our free content. All right, that's it, everybody. We'll see you later, and we'll be back here with more Nebrasketball on Sunday, on Super Bowl Sunday, along with Bigelow. Bye-bye. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.